Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva,
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
and welcome to the snobOS show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. We want to welcome you back to the latest episode of the snobOS show. We want to again thank each and every one of you for your continued support of our show. You can head on over to patreon.com/snobOScast to watch the show live and find out how to get exclusive content. We're going to jump into the show this week and we're going to kick it off with our first segment, The Lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. All right. The first thing up, I know it was mentioned. I think I don't think it I think it I'm trying to remember the timing that it was announced. Can't quite remember, but it was one of those things that kind of rolled down. And everybody was like, "Ooh!" So we have Klarna, and a couple of other kind of what I like to call layaway uh, type. Okay, I don't know what happened to that. Like layaway type things where you could kind
Layaway,
of
but
buy
you get
now.
it. Yeah, old
Yeah.
layaway was you had to put some on it, and then once you paid it off, then you got the product. Well, this is the
Mhm.
reverse. You get the product, and they say, "All right, now you still owe us a couple more payments, so make sure you pay
Mhm.
on it." So,
Yeah, so it's like the installment plan, but you don't have to wait until it's done to get your item. So,
which is very controversial because
yeah, you already got
pe-
it. So what they gonna do?
but no, not just that. People will over index in the stuff that they
Yeah,
think they can afford.
yeah.
If all I got to do is pay 4 easy installments of $39.99, you
Hmm.
may say, "Oh, I got $39.99." So you may buy that thing worth $600,
You
and
might
then
buy three things that are
or something else
39.99
versus
a month.
$700 and $800.
Yeah,
Before you know it, you paying $100, $200, $300, $400 a month in these things. It's like, oh, how did this stuff all add up? So
yeah.
you gotta pay attention to that stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. So all that to say, Apple Pay Later is what it's called, which is Apple's own version of this, is finally getting ready to be launched. But the thing is that everybody was talking about is how is this actually going to work? Well, it appears as if it's very strict rules and guidelines to be able to get into this Apple Pay Later. It seems as if it's going to be restricted. I won't say restricted, but the approval process. It has quite a few things that are involved that are related specifically to you and your use and purchase of Apple products. And you're not going to be I don't think they are going to give you like a long leash, so to speak, to, cause you to kind of get into this situation. You know how Terrance was mentioning you're doing all of these pay laters, but the amount still adds up to a significant amount. So it could be approval process that's in this article that we're reading from Cole to Mac. We don't, of course, know this for sure, but there are uh, things coming out that could go into determining if you're worthy, credit worthy, if you're, reasonable, financially responsible enough to use this program. So some of the things that they are potentially assessing in this could um, include how many Apple devices you already have,
mhm.
if you've applied before for an Apple card. I'm not sure if that means if you applied for and didn't get one, or if you applied for and got one. That I'm not sure. If you have other cards that you use for Apple Pay, it looks like it could possibly look at your spending habits, because I know Terrance and I both have Apple cards. If you When you go into the wallet, it gives you a breakdown of what you spend, what percentage you spend on what type of service. So you
Mm-hmm.
spend 10% on food, 30% on, gas, 25% on this. So it could look at what your spending habits are in that respect. Additionally, it could include what are you currently paying for in your app store purchases, any subscriptions, if you have a ton of subscriptions already. Um, Apple Cash, money that you send to friends and family could be an additional marker. Your transactions using Apple Pay, your financial history with Apple Card.
Hmm.
So it seems like it could be quite a few things that go into this process of determining if you can use Apple Pay later. And if you think about the old school layaway, anybody could put anything on layaway because you didn't get the product. And if you didn't pay for it, they
Hmm.
could just put it back. Or when you came the next time, if say you missed a payment and you came next time, you can say, okay, well, I'm paying two payments to kind of make up or whatever. So it's one of those things where it's a little bit more involved. It's not like getting a credit card, so to speak. But to me, it seems some of the things that they could be checking for are quite a few things that go into determining if you can get a credit card or not.
And the title is a little misleading. Coulter Mack put the title was only loyal Apple customers can use Apple Pay later because of what Nica, all the things that Nica mentioned, Apple is looking at. It's misleading in my opinion because Apple can only look at the things you do with Apple.
Mm-hmm.
So Apple can only look at how many Apple devices you have. So they're like, all right, well, that's going to be a metric because we can't look at how many devices you own in
You
general.
have
They can't
right.
they can't look at how many Samsung TVs you got. They can't look at how many Sony speakers you got. They can only look at Apple stuff. So they're like, all right, that's going to be in consideration. They can only look at your spending habits in Apple stores based on your Apple ID. Because if you buy something, Apple ID, all right, that's a metric we have. We can look at that and determine things. So I think this Coulter Mack took that as, well, Apple is going to judge you based on how loyal of a customer you are,
Mm-hmm.
when in
That's not
actuality,
the
they're
case.
only looking at what they can look at, which
Yeah.
is the business that you do with Apple. Now,
Yeah.
of course, like myself, like Nica, the more business you do with Apple, the more metrics they're going to have, which is going to give them a better understanding of who you are. But they really don't know who you are outside of Apple. So they can only use the information that they have. And I think the Coulter Mack story took, well, we're only going to look at your Apple stuff. And so only the people that spend the most amount of money at Apple,
Yeah.
that have the most amount of Apple Pay transactions, the people that only use Apple Cash and they spend thousands of dollars sending Apple Cash to family and friends. No, that's the only information they got. So that's what they got to roll with, right? So I
Right.
just wanted to put that out there. So,
Yeah.
for example, if you don't have an Apple credit card, right, that doesn't mean you're already excluded. They just
Right.
got to look at another metric, and that other
Yeah.
metric may be, Apple's App Store purchases. Do
Mm-hmm.
you buy thousands of dollars in App Store purchases? You may not be a good candidate because that's a lot, right?
Yeah. You
So
already got a big bill over here with
yeah,
Apple
right,
already.
right. So we may not approve you for the full amount or whatever you're looking for, or whatever the case may be. I just think the story took that as, okay, well, since you got to be a heavy user
Right.
of Apple's products in order to qualify, when they're just using what they got, right?
Right.
Unlike my theory, and this is a little sidebar, I'm a sneakerhead, right?
Uh-huh.
So I use the Nike sneakers app, which is a special app that tracks, or not tracks, only kind of exclusive sneakers get dropped on that. So all the Jordans,
Mm-hmm.
any, LeBron, and, the high end shoes come on that app, and you have to buy them through that app, right? My theory, and again, I've gleaned this from my own usage and from what other people have said, and maybe even Nike's to an extent, was, well, in order to get a lot of the shoes, because you have to, just like Apple, you got to be up to the crack of dawn, right when the shoe drop, you got to immediately get in there, and then they put you in a queue, similar to how you purchase the Beyonce tickets, right?
Mm-hmm.
They put you in a queue, but there's no first come first serve. It's almost like sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. In most
Mm-hmm.
cases, you don't, and people are surmising that, okay, well, you gotta be in the sneakers app all the time, and they put out other type of live
So it's like you
shows
get preferential treatment for the more you
you
are
use and
involved with it.
interact, and
Yep.
you gotta
Yeah.
heart
That makes
things, and you
sense.
gotta like things, and you gotta comment things. If you do all those things, that'll put you in a better position to get the sneakers when they drop. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people took this Apple, well, specifically Mac took the story like, all right, well, only the people that use Apple products heavy, and the loyal customers, the fanboys, are
Hmm.
going to be the ones to get to use Apple Pay later. When
Right.
actuality, it could just be Apple don't know
It
anything
just makes
outside
it
of
it
you.
just makes it easier. I think it
Right.
just makes it easier for them to say or give you the approval if they can see that you have a good
A
history with
history.
Apple.
Right.
So you
Right.
kind of get, fast tracked maybe through the process if they could take a quick hit look at what you've done with them. Whereas someone who may not necessarily, use Apple as much, or even most
I have a
people,
bad history with
yeah,
Apple.
yeah, or a bad history. Yeah. See, I was trying to be on the positive side, but it works both ways. And a lot of times, people the card that they have on their Apple Pay is usually their primary card. So you can say go to Target, but
Hmm.
you choose to put your card in the Target terminal rather
Hmm.
than open it up and pay with Apple Pay from your phone. You're using the same card. It's
Hmm.
the same thing, but it's
Hmm.
just the method at which you're using it. So for someone, say all things equal, every time I go and purchase something, groceries, gas, I use Apple Pay. That would probably, we're guessing here, maybe put me higher in the queue to a person who uses that same type of card, but they use it directly with the store or the patron, whoever they're supporting. But it's technically the same thing. It's just a method in which you're using it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's an interesting, process. So it'll be interesting to see if any of this comes to fruition, to see kind of what the parameters are with this. Oh, they did mention in the article that it was announced last WWDC. So almost a full year, it appears that this is finally coming to fruition. So
And it's still coming. We ain't got it yet.
yeah,
So
we don't have it's all of this is surmising that it's launching, it's coming, that type of thing. So we don't know when it's going to hit, but it seems pretty imminent based on some of the rumblings from I think it's Mark Gurman? Is it Mark? Somebody from
hmm.
Bloomberg.
Hmm. That's him.
So okay, yeah. So that's kind of where we are on that one, to kind of see what it's actually going to look like when it launches. um Next thing up, Apple released a bunch of um what or I deem as kind of like smaller updates to iOS, iPad OS, Mac OS, and I believe Watch OS as well. So, starting off with the iOS updates, there is some security changes that came into, I think, iOS and macOS. Or am I reading that wrong? I thought it was both. I
Yeah,
thought
there's
it
Mac
was.
OS, there's iOS, there's Watch
No, I was
OS.
thinking, I thought it was a security update
It is.
in. Okay, okay.
There's
I'm opening the wrong
a
link. I'm
Apple admits to one of the patches that they fixed was actually being exploited. Before you hear about patches that possibly people could exploit. So
sorry.
Apple patches them before people actually exploit them. Well, there's one specific one. I don't know the actual specifics, but in general, let me take it
I
back.
think it's
I'm
like a
actually looking at it.
WebKit, I think. I was like, I had
Uh-huh.
it somewhere. I thought I had it.
It's a WebKit one. The impact processing maliciously crafted web content may lead to arbitrary code execution. Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited. So that's this latest, specifically with Mac OS Ventura. So
Mhm.
definitely you want to update anything to where people are actually taking advantage of this hole that
Mhm.
Apple is trying to patch. So definitely you want to update your Mac to Mac OS Ventura. But while you're at it, you might as well go ahead and update
Do
everything
all the
else.
rest of them. Do
my,
all the
my
rest of them as well.
my family hates when I send the family text message,
Uh-huh.
Apple update day, and they're like, and they got to go through all their devices and update. And it's like, all right, stuff come up missing. Don't be like, Daddy, fix it,
Get
because I'm gonna be like,
caught
did you update?
slipping.
I'm like, did you update? Well, no. I'm like, all right, we'll figure it out on your own. Which,
Right.
of course, I'm gonna end up fixing
You know,
it on my own anyway.
absolutely.
But you
Absolutely.
still about to get the shame though.
Right. It's not gonna come easy.
Hmm.
The other thing that was, highlighted that was in this fix is I think we talked about it last week, um, or was it the week before? Anyway, recently, how we talked about how crash detection was causing issues
Hmm.
with roller coasters. Then Apple went in and tweaked the algorithm. Then we heard about the ski people saying there are issues with the crash detection, giving them false positives. Well, Apple has included in this iOS 16.3.1 release, they have done even more optimization for crash detection that is supposed to handle it, that should help handle some of the issues related to crash detection that users were seeing that were being reported. So this release should address some of those issues by I think the latest people that were kind of complaining were skiers. So hopefully, and I think I mentioned this last week, how this is what Apple does. It's only so much you can do in a lab to figure out what issues will happen until it's out there in the real world. When I saw it with the roller coasters, they tweaked it. Now they've seen it with skiers, so they've tweaked it. And if there's another group that this something happens with, they'll go and fix that as well. So it's one of the things that is being highlighted, that they are addressing and fixing some of those false positives that people are getting in crash detection. And one thing, so all of this good stuff with the iOS 16.3.1 update. If you haven't already upgraded, if you use Google Photos, there appears to be an issue with Google Photos and this latest version. So some users are saying that this 16.3.1 breaks how the Google Photos app works on iPhone, leading to the app immediately crashing as soon as you opened it up. But it appears that was the issue people were talking about. Of course, there are issues, but it appears in this update that I'm seeing on the article from 9 to 5 Mac that was done on yesterday, the 14th, that a new version of Google Photos has been uploaded to the App Store that fixes the issue. So it doesn't appear that Apple changed anything on their side, but Google Photos, meaning Google, fixed something on their side. So I'm not sure. I know you guys do a lot of photos and do photo sharing, but I think you use it within the Apple ecosystem. I'm not sure if you use Google Photos or not.
No, we use the iCloud shared library. Well,
Mm.
this just goes to show you got to keep your stuff updated. Everything, when was the last time you looked into your app store updates? A lot of people assume that stuff updates automatically, and it does
If you
in
have it
most
turned on
cases.
in the right
But
circumstances.
but even still, though, it may not update when you need it to. For
Yeah.
example, if you update your devices to iOS, well, your iPhone or your iPad to iOS 16.3.1, but you don't update your Google Photos immediately thereafter, you are probably the people who are complaining about this, not to any fault of your own, but if you update your stuff as much as possible, the possibility or the probability that you'll have incompatible apps, software, whatever the case may be, when a new iOS or Mac OS or Watch OS releases, will be
Mm.
few and far between versus you not doing anything and just assuming everything will update. Then when it doesn't, then you're like, all right, well, what happened? And then you're on Twitter complaining.
Yeah. Yeah. But you haven't done the basic thing of updating your apps because they could be ready for whatever the new OS that your phone runs to fix it. So yeah, update your apps. And people continuously update their code for the apps that they put in the app store. So you should, by in turn, make sure that you keep those updated as well. We also mentioned that there was macOS Ventura 13.2.1 update. Um, and it just addresses bug fixes and performance improvements. But the biggest thing that we've talked about already is the WebKit vulnerability. Wow, tongue tied. So make sure you go ahead and get your OS updated. Honestly, like Terrance mentioned, get all of your devices compliant as soon as possible. Apple doesn't really talk about what specifically was changed or updated or improvements or bugs. They don't really explicitly lay that out as they have recently. But they did outline the issues and changes around the WebKit. So that should give you some sort of indication that this is a pretty important update to do. So definitely go ahead and get that done.
Yep.
That is going to wrap up the lowdown where we talked all things Apple. We're going to head on over to Second String where we talk all other tech. So I know you guys are tired of us talking about Facebook and Meta, but uh, I could not pass up the chance to give a little ding to your boy, Mark Zuckerberg. I know it's Mark Zuckerberg, but if you are knowledgeable about Lil Bootsy, who is a rapper in from New Orleans, he got kicked off of Instagram before for some inappropriate content, very inappropriate content.
Very, very inappropriate.
And he kept pleading to Mark Zuckerberg to give him his account back. And he just kept saying, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg. So it's a little bit of a joke. So when I say Mark Zuckerberg, I am referencing, the little Bootsy incident with Mark Zuckerberg. So I say all that to say, the title of this article from Apple Insider is Meta is slowly recovering, but still, quote, at the whim of Apple, end quote, says exec. So we all know that there were some huge layoffs at the beginning of the year from Meta. There was a huge stock fall last year in 2022. And Mark Zuckerberg is saying, you know what, they are slow churning, recovering and getting back. But he's warning the staff at Meta, including that includes Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other stuff as well, that the hits that the company is taking is all because, it's going to keep coming because of the way that Apple has change the way they move with privacy, meaning the whole uh,
Hmm.
ask not to track feature. And if you remember, he took out full page ads. He was just really going off about Apple and this new privacy feature that they put in place. So
Not
he's
because he
basically
cared about your people, but because
right
he was
what
about
they
to
because
lose
they
all
wrapped
this
it in.
money.
Yeah, how they wrapped it in. We're doing it for you, the little
Hmm.
guy, the small business. No, you're doing this for big business, big tech. So it's one of the things where, you know, step into the light, friend, and own up to, overhiring if that was the case, the issues that are causing your stock to fall, and not putting it on a small, well, not a small, but a specific part of your user base. Not all Meta users are Apple users. There are folks over on Android as well, but it seems that he has to kind of keep taking a dig over at Apple because I think, because they didn't acquiesce to his issues around the way they do the privacy tracking with the transparency feature and all of those things. So he felt it necessary to basically, to me, it seems, blame Apple for any lingering staff or, workforce reductions or why they had to reduce the workforce. So, he had to drop 10,000 people because of Apple's, you know, privacy improvements.
Which is probably right. I mean, it's all probably there. You could draw a line to Apple finally giving users power over their own data via the Ask app Do Not Track. a lot of people said, "Oh, I got more control." All right. Well, no, I don't want you tracking me all over the internet, which
Hmm.
is Facebook's main cash cow.
Yep.
Is when you click on something in Facebook, it takes you either to a fake browser to where you can browse still inside of Facebook, or if you click opening your own browser, there the companies that were putting those ads were putting that, I think they call them pixels, I think is what they call them, on your
Okay.
browser, that enabled them and Facebook to track what you did outside of Facebook, what sites you went
So if
to.
you're like saying if you click a link inside of Facebook and it opens the browser within Facebook, you're thinking, "Hey, I'm on a whole new thing now. I'm this has nothing to do with Facebook now." But they were still tracking you outside of
Well,
that.
so even better, right? So you click on something in Facebook, and it takes you in that fake Facebook browser, and
Mhm.
you're clicking on stuff, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want Facebook knowing what I'm doing. Let
Mhm.
me click the option that says open in browser, which
Mhm.
opens you up in Safari or
Mhm.
Chrome or Firefox or Edge if you use it like that. You're thinking, all right, bet I'm out of
I'm good.
Facebook.
Yep.
Now I can click around and Facebook is not tracking me. No, Facebook is tracking you.
They got you.
Specifically, right? If you, unless you are using an Apple device and you click that option to ask app not track. Now that breaks the
The
connection
link.
if
Yep.
you then leave Facebook and go into your own browser. Now, if you're still in that fake browser, that all of them do it. Instagram does it. Facebook does it. Twitter does it.
Mhm.
But if you're still in that, they can still track you because you're still technically in Facebook. But if you leave that and you've selected the Ask App Not Track, that cuts that severs that connection, which you can definitely draw a line with the amount of people who clicked I don't want you tracking me,
Mhm.
to the amount of money or revenue that Facebook lost as a result of not being able to track you, and then take that and serve and give that as data to companies looking to serve up ads.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could say, that one decision caused Facebook to lose a lot of money. And since Zuckerberg is the CEO and Facebook makes all their money off of serving ads and giving that data, which is so valuable to third party advertisers, yeah, you can make a line to say Apple cost them however much was 10 billion or whatever the case may be,
Yep.
which if you're a logical businessman, you're going to have a beef about that.
Yep.
But again, the problem is it's Mark Zuckerberg. It
Yeah.
ain't some random CEO that's really doing something dope. It's
No.
Mark Zuckerberg. People
Yeah.
already fed up with Facebook for all the other reasons,
Mm.
whether it be, messing up your timeline, whether it be, all the other nefarious things that Facebook
Yeah.
has been caught from doing. This was kind of like the the straw that broke the camel's back, and now Mark Zuckerberg is complaining, and they're like, you are the last person that should be complaining about some CEO doing something that's going to mess up your stuff. We don't want to hear from you. Had it been
Right.
anybody else, maybe the CEO of, I don't know, whatever, they'd be like, oh man, that's messed up. We feel for you. Mark Zuckerberg, we don't care.
And I think for me, it goes a little step further because if your biggest moneymaker is exploiting people's privacy, then that's kind of a problem. That's kind of an issue if you're relying on the exploitation and the tracking of your users to make the bulk of your money. You may want to rethink that. You may want to change your model on how you make money from your product if invading someone's privacy outside of what their expectation is, then you may want to change it up a little bit and find another way to make money.
Hmm.
All right. Next up, we've heard a lot about Chat GPT, GPT Plus. Well, we talked about the amount of money that Microsoft has invested in Chat GPT. Well, it appears, and it's been all of the talk on some of the tech streets that Bing, which is Microsoft's answer to the Google search engine, they are now powering Bing using GPT.
They need to
Um,
change that name.
it's the tongue twister. And then when you
Hmm.
add the plus, Chat GPT plus, it's a lot. But what they've done is, uh, again, ChatGPT, the AI service, is improving their Bing searches. I think I saw something on um, Scott Hanselman's
Hmm.
timeline that he was really enjoying using Bing with ChatGPT. In addition to the way it's currently implemented on the web, it looks like they are working on an iOS version that is expected to come in the next few weeks or so. But in what is it, early February, they announced, the integration of these two things, these two pieces of technology. But they, of course, you have to have testers, beta testers, people to kind of get in there and start using it. It seems as if they have added more, early round testers to this service. It's an invite only early access program. So you just have to sign up, get on a wait list before being granted entry. So I'm assuming the wait list is probably really long, and they had probably a cutoff number of how many people they wanted to include. But it seems like they may be going back, digging a little bit deeper into the wait list, similar to what Beyonce did. She added a third show to Atlanta
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
extended the wait list out. So I got a code for that one as well. So it seems as if Microsoft is taking a hint from Beyonce and extending out and adding more people who are on their wait list into this early access program. So
Well, they got to do
uh,
something to get more people to use Bing. This is their best, maybe even last shot at getting people off of Safari or even off of Chrome. Let me not say
Chrome,
Safari first. Get people off of Chrome
Chrome, then
and then
Safari.
get people off of Firefox and then
Uh-huh.
maybe Safari because I ain't gonna front. Safari, people just use it, but that ain't their main thing. They
Yeah,
default when Chrome and Firefox ain't working. They like,
right.
let me check Safari, but even less people is like, well, let me check Edge or let me check Bing. Let me look something up on Bing, right?
Mhm.
I
Right.
don't think that's happening.
Let's do Bing.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you're trying to jump on the train that is Chat GPT that Microsoft has invested an exorbitant amount of money on. So they're like, well,
Hmm.
they better open it up. And to make matters worse, not make matters worse, to make matters sweeter for Microsoft and Chat GPT, the fact that Google's version kind of flopped. I don't know if
Mm.
you're familiar, but soon after Microsoft, announced that they were putting
Oh
all
yeah.
this putting all this time and money and investment in Chat GPT, you would think Google would be the first one to implement AI into Google search. Well, since
Hmm.
Microsoft beat them, Google was like, no, we need to put out our own version. And they have this Google Bard version that implements their own open AI. Their reasoning for not being first was, oh, we want to make sure it's right. We want to make sure when people put information in there, they're not getting misleading information. We want to make sure they're not getting incorrect information. We want to make it right. We want to make sure it's
Hmm.
right before we release it. Sure enough, they release Google's Bard and it rattles off some correct things and then it rattles off one of the incorrect things that people jumped on. So all that to say, all around the world to say, Google has had some tough sailing when it comes to OpenAI. So Microsoft is like, all right, well, now's our opportunity to, expand so we can be first. So people are not, they're already accustomed to Google Bing and this whole Chat GPT thing before
Hmm.
Google finally gets it right or decide what they're going to do with OpenAI. So this is Microsoft saying, all right, we got to strike while the iron's hot because we don't know how many more times we're going to get people to actually use Bing. So let's keep it 100.
Exactly. And I think they're probably really trying to ride the wave of the popularity of ChatGPT. I was talking to my hairstylist earlier today, and she said the free version of ChatGPT is not available anymore. I haven't looked, but it's only the Plus version, which is the $20 per month subscription service that is available. So I think they're probably, which is smart, trying to hop on the wave of let's use this notoriety, this need, this call for the usage, this excitement around it. Let's go ahead and use that to our advantage to kind of see what we can get out of that. So that's cool. We'll see if it actually breathes new life into Bing, or if it fizzles. I think that'll probably be a good indicator of the popularity and how well ChatGPT is kind of melding into the Microsoft landscape. So that should be pretty interesting to see. All right. That is going to wrap it up for second string. We're going to head on over into for the culture, where we talk all things socially relevant or culturally relevant that we want to talk about. So, for those of you who are not Patreon supporters, you didn't hear kind of our rundown of how our week's been going, and it's my week to produce the show this week. And I know that this is still Black History Month, and we have our typical Teching While Black segment.
Mhm.
I am not fully prepared. I do not have one this week. I This has been a week, and so I do apologize for that. I will definitely make it up um, to that. Maybe I'll film something separate and get it posted to our site, because we definitely want to highlight all of our Black tech innovators, particularly on during Black History Month. Additionally, for our socially conscious segment, where we talk about things that are going on in social media, what's going on in the world, I I do not have anything. Um,
So,
I don't know if you have something that you have seen
okay,
on social media, because I haven't really been on it too much this week, so I'm like kind of behind.
not really. There's a
Ooh,
couple.
UFOs.
No. Um, um, so there's two things, right?
Okay, go for it.
So during the Super Bowl, um, Biden announced that he was rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Because
Around the
Dr.
same
Jill's from
time,
Philly.
yeah, around the same time, Elon Musk mentioned that he was rooting for the Eagles as well. According to the numbers, Biden's tweet got 29 million impressions. Elon Musk, who also tweeted his supported Eagles, only got a little over 9 million impressions. I guess he
Oh
deleted his
no.
tweet after that. But in the wake of that, it seems like Elon Musk has threatened his engineers to create a special system that pushes all of Elon's tweets out in
To the
front of a
top.
broader or audience. So people are
No.
complaining about that. So we got that story. We have another story that I saw. This is not anything that's trending or anything, but I saw this and I thought, I'll ask you, since you
Mhm.
are single,
Okay.
if you are dating a guy, or even well, you know what? It's a couple things. So I asked I apply for this as well.
Okay.
Is it your man's responsibility to keep your car clean, keep it fixed, and more importantly, keep it filled, keep the gas tank filled? Reason why I ask this is because there's been a little bit of a debate among folks I know on Twitter on whether or not it's the husband's responsibility, who does not drive the car.
Mhm.
Is it his responsibility if the gas tank is on E, or she's driving, or whatever the case may
Mhm.
be, and the wife says, "Hey, babe, my gas tank is on E." Is that the boyfriend, partner, man, the male person in the relationship,
Mhm.
not to exclude anybody, is it his responsibility to keep the car, specifically the gas tank, filled up if, in fact, he is not the primary driver? So we got those two. Which one do you
Mm.
want to necessarily kind of talk about?
Um, For the thing about Elon, that's super quick. Oh, did your camera change?
Yeah, I don't know why, but keep on going.
Okay. Um, no one's surprised about that. He fired one of his engineers because he thought he should be getting more impressions than he was, and he didn't
Hmm.
like the numbers that he was saying. And for him to think that he is of greater importance than the president of the United States, that is laughable because, sir, get a freaking grip. You
Hmm.
already have fired so many engineers. Twitter is breaking on the daily. You're so concerned about making up some of this money you spent, and yet you're still trying to come up with these personal vanity products to soothe your ego. Bro, have a seat.
Hmm.
So that's all I'll say about that.
Well, it does bring up a bigger issue, though, right? We talked about I talked about it earlier about Mark Zuckerberg and people complaining about their feeds being messed up. We talked about Instagram and how they have focus on video, focus on video, focus on video.
Mm,
You can't really see who posts what chronologically.
mm,
TikTok had an issue about this. They call it a heat button, to where if a
interesting.
particular person's post is doing good, there's a button that they can press that can surface that tweet or TikTok video above all the other
Broadcast
ones,
it.
so they can sell more ads against it. Because if everybody's watching it, that means more eyeballs are on it. That
Mm,
means more people are going to see the ad before or after it, right? I'm pretty sure that's the same reason why Facebook is doing it. I'm pretty sure the same way Instagram is doing videos over pictures, because people are watching it longer. That means more impressions. That means yada, 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 right? But it brings up the bigger issue specifically now with Elon Musk is is even though all of those platforms are user generated content, how much control do we actually have over our content if at the whim of the creators, the engineers, they can change it around to suit their own needs? It's like, is it a user generated community, or is it a community of people deciding what's going to
manufactured
get
content.
manufactured content? Even though the users are generating it,
Mm-hmm.
it's being curated, it's being
Mm-hmm.
distributed. Is it ours anymore if we don't control it, right? So that's the kind of like the bigger issue. That's kind of what I wanted to bring up about that story. Or like I said, and did you want to weigh in on, as a single person,
The culture wars. Yes.
yeah, are there is there a still a place for gender based roles in relationships, or is it all things equal, or is it what? How do you view, these type of topics when it comes down
Right.
to who should be doing what? And I'll give you the opposite of that would be, is it fair? Well, I'll pose this: is it
Mm-hmm.
fair for the woman in the relationship to say, for example, yes, I do
Mm-hmm.
believe the man's responsibility to keep the car clean,
Mm-hmm.
keep it fixed, keep gas in it. Okay, opposite of that is it fair for a man to say, okay, as a woman, your responsibility is to dot dot dot,
Mm-hmm.
and are women okay with that type of thing, or is it truly equal, or is there just flat out still room for gender-based roles in relationships?
So I like to think of it as, you know, uh, what your love language is. Some people, they care about acts of service. That is the way it can be, the way they receive love, or it could be the way that they give love. If you are a woman whose love language is acts of service, your partner, your husband, boyfriend, whatever your person is to you, if they go and fill your car up with gas or go and wash your car when it's dirty, that's, the way that you receive love. And that is, imperative to you. Or if that's the way you give love, if you know that your partner's, the way he shows love is acts of service, him doing that makes sense in your relationship.
Hmm.
Now, if that isn't your brand of love or how you care to show that this is how you show affection or show you care about someone, some people may not even care because
Hmm.
it's like, whatever, I can just, run through the, car wash
Mm-hmm.
thing, or
Mm-hmm.
stop
Mm-hmm.
off at the car wash place and let them, service my car for 30 minutes or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So and I really think when you try to put these, what we call gender norms, when you try to put anything like this on a mass scale,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be controversy. It's going to be, well, they should do this, they should do that, blah, 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 blah. And it's going to, people's like, it's kind of not a big deal. I think we should really start looking at some of these things not as gender related, but partner related. What
Mm-hmm.
works in
Your
your
relationship.
relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the petty end, I'll say is you see a lot of men on social media saying, particularly black women, they don't let the man lead. He's the head of your household.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you
Mm-hmm.
not letting him lead? But then you won't clean out her car. You won't take it on Sunday to fill it up to fill up her tank for the week. You won't clean
Mm-hmm.
her car. Same thing if you flip it on the script on women. There are some women who are deep in the, what I call it, because that's just me, deep in the patriarchy. They think they
Mm-hmm.
still hold those gender norms, as well. So if your husband is going to be the sole breadwinner of the home, then yeah, you should still, it's not like you're a stay at home mom or stay at home partner. You just
Mm-hmm.
work in the home. So
Mm-hmm.
you're doing what works for your household. If your partner is going to say, you know what, I make the money, and we take care of our household, we take care of our personal things you like, things I want. If that is the way that you've structured your relationship and said that this is the way it works for us, then yes, you need to, make sure the home is clean, cook dinner, those
Mm-hmm.
type of
Mm-hmm.
things. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to be this, I won't say new age, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say we're
Okay.
going 50-50 on the bills, but then still expect the woman to clean, cook, take care of the kids. That's not
Mm-hmm.
50-50. If it was
Right.
50-50, I bring in 50% of income to the household, you bring in 50% of the household, but I do
Mm-hmm.
50% of the housework and parenting, you do 50% of the housework and parenting. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where you can't take what is standard gender norms and still try and apply all of these other exceptions to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm the head of the
Mm-hmm.
household, I lead. We both, I don't make enough money to take care of us by myself, so you need to work too. But you still need to be, I'm still the head of
Let
the
me lead.
household. Let me lead, but you still got to be the only one doing the domestic work because I'm still the man, and it's solely based on gender and not on how your household works.
All right, and it makes a good point. Uh, yeah, that makes a good point. I think you mentioned it should be relationship based. That was a
Mm-hmm.
thing, relationship based. So if a couple decides, okay, well, it just makes more sense or it's easier for me to do this the majority of the time,
Mm-hmm.
then that's just your choice versus it being an expectation or a requirement that as a man, your job is the X, and
Mm-hmm.
or as a woman, you're you're expected or required to do X.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All
Yeah,
right, that makes sense.
that's just the way I think about it. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right, that makes sense. It seems like these Twitter streets, people
they
are up in
are
arms.
they are rough, and it's just like,
Well,
it's funny. I don't know on Twitter if you follow the girl. Oh, shoot, I forgot her handle. I think is the baddest Mitch.
yeah,
And
yeah,
she's
yeah,
a
the little
girl, and she had the
podcast.
podcast,
Yeah.
Hoes Not Human, and it's
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
basically a
Kind of like
play
a
off of
satire.
a
Yeah.
satire of the manosphere and how men do podcasts when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
relationships with women. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it cracks me up because it is so true to form. And the guys in her comments, ragging and complaining about it, those are the exact people she's parroting, and they can't even, see it. So it's kind of the thing of, you want all these things, you expect all these things, you should have all these things. This is your right. I'm a man. This is what should be done. for me and what I should be allowed to do. But at the same time, it's like the math's not mathing. It's not quite balancing out based on your view of relationship. So I brought it up because it's super hilarious, and it really, like I said, there are men in any comment of any of her videos basically confirming what she's saying. And I think somebody complained about the videos, and she was only going to do a certain part. Like I think she's on like part 7 or something. She's like, now I'm going to do up to a part 16 just to keep y'all mad. So I think it's fun, and honestly, it's fun, but it's very relevant.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think I in general, I think people, well, the men specifically that are upset and put the comments. In general, I think people needs to learn how to measure up themselves to the
Mm.
expectations they have in other people. In this case, she's always, her podcast and her, satirical thing is always about, like you mentioned, how women are supposed to do this, women are supposed to do that, and I think men, the men in these situations are upset at these women that again probably wouldn't be interested in them anyway. So as a result of that, it's like the men not they are what's the word? Supporting these, podcasters because these commenters feel like these main podcasts with these dudes that kind of have these, conversations around, what men are supposed to be doing versus what women are supposed to be doing. I think they look at that as, oh yeah, there's a lot of women out here need to be humbled, right?
Mm.
Because women are starting to make more money. They are starting to be more educated. They are starting to, expect more of the relationship. And I think there are a lot of men out there who don't measure up.
Mm.
But instead of finding the women that fit their specific requirements, I think
Or
they want
improving themselves to come up to the
or
women that they
or
like.
right. They kind of scream out at a lot of these women, and I think you know people need to get in where they fit in. I think that's my ultimate
Mm.
thing, men
Yep,
and women. I think
absolutely.
both sexes have a lot of you know requirements, for the other like I need you to do better on the other side when everybody needs to rise each other. Everybody needs to rise up and then, then you'll have a better experience, right? Versus just complaining at the other side of the other people. Y'all
What they
ain't doing
aren't
enough of
doing.
this, right?
Yeah,
What they are doing instead of focus on what you should be doing, right?
right. Absolutely. Yeah, culture wars on social media, they can be pretty intense. And there are some people who they just will it's a lot. And it's like, you know what? Let me flip my timeline and look at something else because this is nuts at this point. So that is going to wrap up for the culture. Again, I'll probably film something a little bit separate and post that for Teching While Black because I do want to make sure we keep up with that, particularly in this month. But for now, that's going to wrap up for the culture. Next, we are going to head into the hookup where we have a tech tip of the week. Brother Tech, what do you have for us this week?
Yeah, you talked about earlier updating your devices. There's the latest update that came out for your iPhone, your iPad, your watch, your computer, right?
Mhm.
There's also another update for your cable.
Mm.
We've talked about AirPods and needing firmware updates. We've already talked about at length ad nauseum about how your phones need to be updated, but also apparently Apple has cables that need to be updated as well. Specifically,
Mm.
if you have a M1 MacBook Pro or an M2 MacBook Pro, they come with this cable here because again, for those who are listening, you just have to pretend I'm holding up a MagSafe to USB-C 3, which
Google
is
it.
Yeah, right. These cables came with it's like a braided. I don't know if the camera can see that. It's a
I don't think
braided
you pick it up.
cable that comes that charges your MacBook. I think they started including them in the MacBook Pro, that the M1 Pro and M1 Max. I think the ones that came out, the ones we have, right?
Mhm.
These cables actually have a little computer chip inside of them to where the firmware needs to be updated. So if you have a relatively new MacBook Pro, you definitely need to plug up your MagSafe cable into your Mac and plug the USB-C portion into the power adapter that came with your MacBook and plug that in, and then the firmware will automatically update it on its own. I have no clue about what the firmware does, but I did find this story on Cult of Mac. I'm like, oh man, not only do your phones and your tablets and your computers have to be updated, now your cables got to be updated as well. Normally, this won't, you probably won't care. You probably won't notice it because you probably always and only exclusively use the cable that came with your MacBook. But there are a lot of USB C accessories. For instance, in my case, I have a USB C hub that can also charge my Mac. So I plug a USB C, a regular high speed USB C cable into this adapter that then the adapter plugs into my Mac, and then that's how I power it and also add the extra monitor, add the camera, the microphone. So I don't actually use this cable. This is sitting in my bag, right? So for my case, I have to, after this show is over, have to go plug up this cable and plug it into my MacBook so it can update the firmware. So just be in mind to where if you're using different accessories, if you've got a smaller USB-C cable, if you're using anything other than this, you want to go plug this cable up to make sure it's got the firmware update for your Apple cables, which is crazy, but I guess that's the world we live in nowadays.
Yeah, I'm really surprised by this. I had no idea that there was a chip in the actual cable.
I'm assuming it's for
Interesting.
charging, like with the iPhones. My guess is with the iPhones, they do smart charging to where when they're done charging, they'll actually turn
Power
themselves
down.
off,
Yeah.
not necessarily power down, but stop the connection to where you're not overcharging your
Yeah.
devices. My guess is that's the same thing. If you charge up your Mac too much, maybe this cable can regulate that and
Mhm.
give it less power so you're not overcharging. That's just my guess, but I don't know for sure.
And it makes sense because it's basically power distribution. You want to make sure that you are distributing the power efficiently. So when you think about it that way, it does make perfect sense.
But it's just another thing to update.
To add to the list of things. Fortunately, you don't have to, the most you have to do is plug in the adapter, which when your battery goes low or
Right.
your laptop dies, you need to do it anyway. So
Right.
so that makes it a little bit easier, but again, yet again another thing. That is going to wrap it up for the hookup. Before we wrap up the show today, I alluded, if you are a Patreon supporter, I alluded to a family emergency earlier this week. And I alluded to the reason why we don't have a Teching While Black is because the week has been crazy. I think I've mentioned my nephew Aiden several times on this show. His mother, which is my cousin, technically, but we all grew up like siblings, unfortunately passed away unexpected on Monday.
Hmm.
Again, she was a younger cousin. There are only two girls in our family. All the rest are for our line, our cousins and siblings, that kind of thing, are all boys. So we were the only two girls, and she always say, she liked to copy me and things. If I got an Audi, she got an Audi, those kind of things. And I like to think her love of Apple products also extended for me as well. She was a huge Apple fan, iPad, Apple Watch, iPhones,
Hmm.
MacBooks,
Hmm.
all those things. So I did want to take a moment to recognize that and give her a little shout out for that. So rest in peace, Maria.
Yeah, our condolences to you and yours.
Thank you very much. Again, that is going to officially wrap up the show for this week. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Yeah, you can find me all over the internets at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva on all of the social media platforms as well. Don't forget, you can connect with us, comment, share, and support our show by going to snobOScast.com to get all the details on how you can do that. Again, thanks for tuning in and have a good rest of the week. We will see you next week.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.